Welcome to podcast number 6, today with Hamad from ASAPP. Hamad, welcome. Thank you for taking your time for us being on the podcast.
Man, thank you for having me. I've listened to a couple of your episodes from earlier. So once you kind of hit me up to do this, I was excited to say the least.
Really glad to have you. We met, I think, almost, was it 2 years back on an event, and just recently reconnected. So I'm really glad that this happens here. And I would just jump right in. I would say for those who don't know you, haven't heard about you or ASAPP, tell us, who are you? What are you about?
Yeah, so just to start from the beginning, I was born in Kuwait. I'm Kuwaiti.
Okay.
And when I was 1, my family and I moved to New York City, and I grew up there for 14 years. Obviously played a lot of sports, especially football. And 2007, we moved to Spain, and I lived in Madrid for about 11 years. And so I just moved here in September 2018. From the beginning to now, sports has always been a very significant driving force in my life. I used to even play football, both in New York and Spain. And I'm just excited to still be involved in sports,
Of course. What an interesting mix. How was it? You grew up, I guess, what you can remember, mainly in New York then, from age 1 until, 14 you said?
Exactly.
How was the shift to Spain, to Europe? Tell us about that.
It was tough at first, to be honest, because at home we spoke Arabic, and then I spoke English at school. So when we moved to Spain, I didn't really speak any Spanish, like zero. And so apart from just kind of like the culture shock of, meeting new people, etc., I had the extra barrier of needing to learn the language as well. So I must say, like, my first maybe 6 months in Spain was a little bit of a learning curve. But then after that, obviously I stayed 11 years, so obviously I enjoyed myself.
You speak Arabic, English, and Spanish, I guess, because of your time there.
Yeah, and thankfully, I think Spanish was the key factor for me kind of getting integrated into Spain, meeting people from the country and learning their culture really firsthand.
Okay, you said you played football your whole life. I guess you started playing football in New York, must be, and then you continued in Spain, in Madrid?
Yeah, correct. So, since I was a kid, football my whole life. And then when we moved to Spain in 2007, I was 15. Yeah, I was 14, 15 years old. And I had the opportunity to actually play in the Atletico Madrid's youth academy. So I was lucky enough to, so I was lucky enough to play there for a while.
Okay. So I guess you're not the worst player on the field then?
I'm okay. I don't play much football now. I had a lot of injuries. I tore both ACLs in both my knees. Okay. Yeah, a couple of ankle injuries. And so now I play billiards.
Okay, I can imagine. Was that the reason why you needed to stop playing, because of the injuries?
It was kind of one of the biggest reasons, because even after I left the Atletico Madrid's academy, I was playing in different clubs in Madrid, predominantly in the north of Madrid, in a city called Alcobendas. And I was playing at quite a decent level. And then because of the injuries, I couldn't commit myself 100% anymore. I had to study in my university. But after I finished university, I still had this itch for sports. And so I did an MBA in sports management.
Okay. Before we jump into business, I'm sure you've told that story 100 million times, but as a football fan myself, I need to ask a follow-up on the Academy of Atletico Madrid. How did you get in there? How was it playing for such a club?
It was incredible, and it was very eye-opening compared to what football is in the States, because it's not the biggest sport there. So when I first moved to Spain, a friend of my father's knew somebody that worked at the club, and he said, hey, it was just kind of in the beginning of August, and they were still doing their preseason, and they were doing the trial period. And he asked him, hey, like, I know these two kids who play football. Can they have a trial? And so me and my younger brother went. I'm 5 years older than him. And we both got accepted. He beat me by 2 weeks. He got accepted 2 weeks before me. But we're the first two Kuwaitis to play for a top European youth academy.
Wow. And I mean, that's amazing. What an achievement.
Yeah, no, it's very fond memories to look back on.
Okay. And for how long did you play for the academy? How long did you say?
I played for about a year and a half almost. So my first year I was there, and I left the club because I got cut because of a age difference. Because I had to move up to the higher category, and then what they did from that season, like when I was about to go up, is they only kept one team instead of having the ordinary four. So there was no space for me to kind of enter into that team, and so I left. I played for a team in Alcobendas, and then they asked me to come back for trials the season after. And they were going to put me on the D team. And I stayed with them for a while, in the preseason especially. And then the club that I was playing at already was playing at a higher division for my age. My teammates who were a little bit better than the team. They were going to put me on the C team in Atletico Madrid when I went back. So I decided to continue with my club elsewhere.
Okay.
But my younger brother played there for 7 years, though. So.
Okay. Do we know him in any professional league now?
No. He's he played there for 7 years, and then he played in semi-professionally in Germany, actually, in Offenbach.
Oh, can't mention Offenbach as a Frankfurt fan, but go on.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Frankfurt a lot, so I mean, there was just a better opportunity for him at Offenbach.
Okay, fair enough. I guess we skip the career then of your brother. Jump into something else. No, I mean, amazing. And how was it for? I mean, football in Spain is obviously something else, like you said, compared to the US. How was it for the guys there to get maybe a new team member from the US, not speaking Spanish in the beginning? How was that experience?
It was odd at first because one of my biggest characteristics when I playing football was that I used to speak a lot on the field. I was growing up, and all the teams that I played for, I always seemed to be the captain of the team, or at least the assistant captain. So I always had kind of a significant voice. So when I went to Spain, especially at a team like Atletico Madrid, and I couldn't speak the language, it was like I lost a huge aspect to my game, you know? And so I had to kind of find that somewhere else. So I tried harder, I guess. I mean, I trained quite hard anyway, but like it was a big shift to be able to do that. But my teammates were very accepting. They were very easy to talk to. They were kind of teaching me a lot of the main words that I needed to use during football games. And kind of little by little, I started taking in more language. But it was hard to understand for the most part.
No, I can imagine. And then you moved on after playing for Atletico. You said you played for another team. For how long did you play there before you came to Doha?
So I played there for about I think maybe 4 years.
Okay.
For about 4 years, and then I tore my first ACL when I was 20 years old.
Okay, at a young age.
Since then, I haven't been able to play at a club level because I remember I tore my ACL in January. And I was out for the rest of the season, of course. And so by the time preseason came, I was ready. I trained with them for about a month and a half, 2 months, hurt my knee in preseason. And then I was out for another 2 months, came back in around October, November, and I had been cut because of my long injuries. Mm-hmm. So from there, I kind of stopped playing on a more serious level. It was just kind of more recreationally with friends, and which makes sense, honestly. If I'm looking back at it now, I didn't have the level to continue.
But at the time, of course, you wouldn't see that. I mean, I played football myself for, I think, 12 years, really starting at a very young age. Don't we have all the aspiration to play in a stadium at one stage on a professional level?
100%. I mean, it was my dream. Like most people, like you said, you know, it was like, and because I was like in an academy, it was like, it felt like, all right, I'm definitely on the right path. But it's crazy because like football, whether I'm playing it If I'm playing it, if I'm not playing it, I'm reading about it. If I'm not reading about it, I'm watching it. If I'm not watching it, I'm thinking. So it's like it's always ever present. And it was such a good release in general because I can go play football for 2 hours or an hour and I can forget about everything in the world. I can just focus on playing. So when I stopped playing, that was kind of a big adjustment for me as well, to kind of find somewhere else to kind of release this energy that I had.
And what did you find worked for you? If it's such a big part of your life, of your daily, of your escape, and then because of injuries, because of different developments, you can't practice that anymore. What did you find for yourself worked to release that energy or to also deal with the situation?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, in the beginning, it was very tough. I felt lost. It was like, something I've been doing for my whole life and I didn't have it anymore. I was so used to training 3-4 times a week and then I have a game on the weekend. That was just my life. So all of a sudden it was taken away from me, especially in the circumstances that it happened. So like I was out for almost a year, just kind of doing physiotherapy, and I had to do knee surgery, and the emotional process of recovering from an ACL injury is tiring in itself. It took a lot of, physical effort and emotional effort. So I do all of this thing and then I come back and they say no more. It was a tough blow. It was very tough. I had a hard time kind of finding my way again. But again, the release that I found again was sports. It was through watching sports and trying different sports here and there. I started playing billiards more. So I found a release, and funnily enough, it was still with sports, but it did take a long time to kind of find that groove.
Okay. And now you said, I mean, if you don't play, then you think, read or watch football. How is maybe the time back then and also what you're doing right now connected? How do you maybe benefit from what you learned, even in such a difficult time?
Yeah. So I mean, I think you would agree with this as well, that there's like things that each sport, teaches you. Whether if it's football, teaches you commitment and teamwork and effort and responsibility. And these are definitely things that I took that I, use in my daily life. And so it's funny because the 2 knee injuries are probably the worst thing to happen to me with regards to actually playing football. But retrospectively, when I look at it now, it's possibly the best thing to have ever happened to me, in the sense that it showed me a different side of myself that I didn't know that I had, or that I had within me. Yeah.
That takes a lot of strength to say that now, I guess, to see such a negative highlight as something that you can drive from now.
It would be a lie if I told you my life was beautiful and peaceful at all times. At the end of the day, we're all human, and it's like human nature to feel sad and angry and kind of assume things. But looking back at it now, having those 2 injuries put me in the position that I'm in now. Whereas if I didn't have those injuries, I would probably be doing something else. And even though playing professionally was my dream isn't necessarily my reality. So having said that, I think my purpose within the world of sports is much bigger than just playing. I think I have a lot more to contribute, considering my background and my exposure in Europe, in the States, and in the Middle East, being from here. I'm in a great position now, and all that is because of what happened from before.
That's such a powerful thing to say, that maybe your dream and your reality is not necessarily the same thing, and to actually realize that and have the humility to shift and say, okay, move on. As much as this was my dream at one point in life, but now it's a different reality, and to move on. Very, very good. And I mean, there's so much opportunity, especially in the Middle East, looking up to 2022, how you can contribute in football in particular. And sports in general is on the rise, I feel, wherever we look around here in Qatar as well. There's so many people engaged now, but football in particular. Do you find that as well?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And like kind of the way I look at it is that especially Qatar, with the FIFA World Cup coming, since they got it since 2010, Aspire Academy's been around since 2004. So like their initiative with sport has been, long in the making. It's not just now. So having the experiences kind of abroad and then coming here and establishing myself here, it feels like that with regards to sports especially, it's like the Middle East is just like maybe 10 years behind Europe in the sense of like the actual event and, planning the event and kind of doing all these things. So like kind of knowing what the process is in Europe and the States and then coming here and seeing what's kind of missing. Like you said, there's like crazy opportunity to be able to like actually contribute to the sporting landscape in the Middle East.
I think so too, and really a trigger. I mean, I've been here now for 2.5 years-ish. A trigger was, I think, when Qatar won the Asian Cup, and that really united people. And for the first time, I felt here in the country that, that could be 2022 can be really, really great because people come together behind any team really, and if it's not their own that they can support, then they will come together for Qatar in that case. And that was so amazing to see.
100%. There's actually kind of a funny coincidence that when we moved to Spain in 2007, before that, Spain had never won any international cup. So we moved in 2007, and then the Spanish national team won the Euro Cup in 2008, the World Cup, and then the Euro Cup again in 2012. And then the summer of 2014, when Germany won the World Cup in Brazil, just a couple of months before the World Cup, my family had moved to Germany.
Okay, I see.
And 2018, my family moves here, and Qatar won the Asian Cup.
So good to have you here then. Good to have you, Hamad.
If my family is still here during the World Cup, then who knows, man? The sky's the limit.
So I must thank you to 14 as well for moving to Germany in that time and giving us the World Cup. Thank you so much.
I think the German national team had a little bit more to do with it than us, but thank you. I'll take it.
I mean, maybe the mix of it really. But since then, nothing really has been happening with our national team, unfortunately, when it comes to World Cups. So let's look forward. You have ASAPP, an application, and as you mentioned, only one product of a bigger holding or a company that you started here. What is this all about? I guess it's about sports.
Of course, 100%. Everything leads back to
Must
sports. So the name of the company is Doli Sports, and I co-founded it with my brother, who also played in Atletico Madrid. So he's kind of back in the picture now with me. So Doli in Arabic means international, and then sports is sports. And I mean, the catalyst of everything is, of course, ASAPP, which is stands for Advanced Stadium Application, as well as soon as possible. And what ASAPP is that it's a stadium service application. So when you go to a stadium, instead of waiting in line and queuing and getting your food and then going back to your seat, you can easily waste from 25 minutes to half an hour just waiting in line for food. So with ASAPP, you'll be able to enter your seat information, and the menu of the nearest concession stand will pop up on your phone, and you can order straight to your seat, or you can go and express pickup. So there's no waiting in line. And it's happened to me so many times where I go to games and I miss, goals. Like I missed a goal in a Champions League final because I was waiting in line.
That's extremely sad.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. So there is a real pain, and like it's I think a part of the digital revolution. So like anything that can become digital will become digital, and I think this is just kind of one piece of the cake. And apart from food and beverages, there's gonna be a lot of things that we're gonna introduce, like the sale of merchandising in stadiums through the app, seat guides, parking guides if it's applicable, and it's kind of just kind of a stadium service application.
Okay, what triggered you to start something like that? I mean, beside the pain that we know as people who go to stadiums, events, watching football games, what triggered it for you that you say, why don't we have an app for that? Basically, Talabat carriage for inside the venue.
Yeah, so it all started when I was doing my MBA, actually, in sports management. For my thesis or my dissertation, I had to think of a viable business within the sports industry. And so I kind of sat down and thought about it, and I ended up thinking of ASAPP. It didn't have the name ASAPP at the time, but that was what my business plan was. So I presented it, and it was done, and I kind of put it into the back, and I stopped thinking about it because I was working at a sports sponsorship and marketing agency in Madrid at the time after I graduated. and I had to leave that job because of visa issues, and I was still in Spain. So I thought, okay, given the kind of the opportunity that I'm in, the stage that I'm in my life, I can maybe bring this kind of business plan back to life because it exists in the States. So the validation is there, but it's just now, how can I take that validation and execute it where it makes sense for people in Europe, it makes sense for people in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. But of course, them knowing nothing about it, and not that they need something like that necessarily, which we see so often, concepts that might work in the US, might work in Europe, but that is not really a market fit here in the Middle East, or even concepts that work in the US and are not a market fit for Europe. Although it would, in your eyes, especially in the entrepreneur's eyes, I would say in general, make so much sense, but not for a wider market audience.
Yeah, and at first there was a big learning curve to actually, applying it for people in the Middle East, because the first thing I did when I got to Qatar was I looked up every single sports event that was going on in the country, and I bought tickets and I went to every single one. Whether it was artistic gymnastics in Aspire, the swimming in Aspire, there was the tennis in the tennis complex. I went to every single one. And purposely, I would sit in my seat and I would get up and I would go and I'd wait in line to get like a popcorn or a soda. And each time I waited more than 45 minutes.
Oh, wow. 45 minutes.
Yeah. And especially here in the Middle East, I feel like there's like no actual line process. Everybody just kind of stands in one place and, all right, if you can get to the front of the line, then you get to the front of the line. Yeah. So I kind of looked at it that way and I was like, okay, so there are definitely people online that are experiencing the same frustrations as me to get a popcorn for 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. So kind of reevaluating it, I entered into Cubic, which is the Qatar Business Incubation Center, and I kind of entered into their Lean Startup program. And they were a big help with regards to actually repositioning the idea for this market.
And how so? How would you say they helped you change maybe the positioning of the brand?
Yeah, so what I realized here is, and what they kind of taught me and what I was kind of learning step by step, was that the spectator's journey within a sports venue is very different to what it is in Europe or in the States. So when you go to a football game in Germany, for example, you go inside the game, before the game starts, you sit down in your seat. Halftime, you go to the concession stand within the venue and you go back to your seat. Whereas here, people would go to the game and then at halftime leave and get a cup of coffee in the parking lot and come back inside of the stadium, which is not going to be the case when the FIFA World Cup comes, because it's going to be within the stadium. And even when I went to the Emir Cup final in 2019, I think, last year in the Danube Stadium. Yeah. So there was people standing within the concession area with megaphones saying, if you leave the stadium, you cannot come back inside. Mm-hmm. And this was kind of new knowledge to me as well. And so what they did was kind of help me reassess my business plan and my kind of my way to enter to the market, to be able to kind of target these people who are not used to the idea of getting something from within the venue, and also from a kind of a marketing perspective.
Okay, interesting. You have knowledge really from all three, from the US, from Europe, from the Middle East. Now, the one time, the time when I visited the US and I had the opportunity to go to a baseball stadium, which is not a sport that I massively enjoy, to be honest, but just for the experience, I wanted to see what this is about. And what I saw, and this is the only sports that I saw live in the US, is that people experience a sporting event more of a place together, a place to meet friends, have a snack, talk about, the weekend, talk about what happened last week at work. And when I compare this to, it's a different sport, obviously, it's football in Europe, football in Germany. When we go to a stadium, then there is not that much, it's not for meeting friends, it's for supporting your team. 90 minutes. And then after the match, of course, there's social gatherings, you speak to each other, you gather, you have a drink, etc. But during the match itself, these are completely two different experiences. How do you see that, maybe from your perspective and also here in the Middle East?
Yeah, so that's a great question, actually. So the way kind of sports is consumed from each region is obviously very different, right? And since you brought up the States, in the States you have American football as well, and you have basketball and baseball. And the way from my understanding and kind of my approach, in my opinion, to it is that sports in the US is more business oriented than it is sports. Whereas in Europe, it's more traditional than it is business. I actually think in Europe now they're in that phase where they're making it more of a business than it is sport and tradition wise. Kind of almost copying the model that's in the States. So because you have sports like football, American football, and baseball, whereas like you said, you spend the whole day there, and it takes very long, and the space between the seats is much bigger, and it's like a whole day event rather than the 2 hours that you go to a football game. Yet in football, you're still kind of experiencing this pain of missing important moments of the game. You only have 2 hours to watch it, right? Yeah. So if you miss a key 5 minutes, then you could actually miss out on
everything.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Whether it's a goal, whether it's a play, whether it's a red card, whether it's the momentum of the team, and you're also kind of missing out on the experience of being within that crowd. So of course the window is much smaller, but the opportunity still exists. And the great thing about Qatar is that, of course, football is the biggest sport here, but there's so many sporting events that are going on here, from the IAAF athletics that happened in 2019. You have the tennis every year. You have the MotoGP every year since 2005, I think it initiated. So the sky's the limit here.
Okay. And how do you feel people experience those events here? Is it more business related like in the US, or maybe more intense and more traditional like in Europe?
I think it's more leisure here more than anything else. People kind of go just to kind of, disconnect a little bit and see what's kind of going on and hang out with some people. We were actually able to debut ASAPP. We entered into the market just in March last month with
just recently.
MotoGP. Yeah, so it was supposed to be at the MotoGP. The MotoGP class wasn't there, but Moto2 and Moto3 was there, and that's where we debuted the application. And it was great, to be honest. And we got a lot of customer feedback, and it validated the idea that it works here, adjusting it to the market. So I think here it's more kind of a leisure thing, and then also just kind of understanding the culture here. People like convenience, and this is just kind of an added piece of convenience to an industry that doesn't really necessarily offer that.
Okay, I understand. Interesting point. I could go on now about how you see the shift in Europe maybe towards a more US-based model. Maybe just quickly, how do you feel about that?
I think it's just kind of part of the process. It was bound to happen sooner or later. And I think the driving force behind that, like most things, is money and the amount of money that's actually within the sport. I was reading an article yesterday that said because of the COVID-19 crisis pandemic that's happening right now, I think the sports industry is going to lose, I think, around 6.9 billion with sponsorship and TV rights and production, all that kind of stuff. So just that number there shows how important and how important money is in sports, and like kind of the opportunities that kind of lies within it. So where there's more money to make, people are going to try to make more money, and hopefully it doesn't take away from the integrity of the sport and kind of the experience of the fans.
I really hope that too. I think it's a fine line sometimes between over commercializing something that is so dear to people for decades, visiting that stadium, supporting that club. Very fine line.
There's been some flack with it just from recent years. Like I remember in the UK with the Newcastle United, where their stadium is iconic. It's called St. James's Park, and then they had a stadium naming rights change, and it was called the Sports Direct Arena. And the fans went crazy. They protested against it. They showed their how much they were against it. And then now they actually changed back the name of the stadium to St. James's Park because of the fans' involvement. And I'm sure I think it was Red Bull Leipzig also kind of had a similar experience with this with regards to actually changing the name of the club to Red Bull.
Extremely controversial, yeah.
Like you said, it's a fine line. So I hope it doesn't take away from the actual main event, which is the sport that you're watching, you know?
Yeah, and it's the people who make it that event. And being a Frankfurt fan myself, having one of, I think, the greatest experience when you visit a stadium in Germany, if you kind of take away those fans, and we had unfortunately a few matches without fans in the past years, that's not what it should be, really. That's not what football in particular is about. So, I mean, we could have a whole nother, I think, episode around that topic. Maybe just.
By the way, the Frankfurt Stadium is amazing, man. The Commerzbank Arena, it's one of a kind.
One of a kind. Thank you so much. You just evened out the Offenbach comment earlier.
No. We're still playing the Frankfurt at the end of the day.
Okay, very good. No, but
Alex Mayer.
Yeah, unfortunately not anymore, but at the time.
But he's the club legend, I mean.
Yeah, true. So I'm so honored that you know that. Thank you for saying that. What else beside ASAPP is in the product pipeline for your company? Is there anything that we can look forward to?
Yeah, so kind of just based off my experiences abroad with sports and kind of on a playing level and on a working level, especially tied in with my brother's experience in sports in Europe. He just graduated from his university with a sports management degree as well. And I think we just kind of have a lot more to offer than just kind of providing an application. So kind of the things that we're kind of trying to get involved in is a lot of sports consultancy in the region, sports sponsorship opportunities, endorsement deals, and to kind of bring this kind of business and idea and have it in the Middle East. Because from what I've seen, there isn't that many, or there's very little. And I think with our experience in Europe and the States, and then kind of adjusting it for here, I think we have kind of a competitive advantage in that sense. So we're most definitely kind of getting more involved into that side of it as well. So consultancy, marketing, sponsorship, and a little bit more.
That sounds very exciting. Really,
the process or the approach that, sorry to cut you off, by the way, it's kind of the approach that we have is that if we like it, we think it's a viable business and we like it and we're passionate about it, let's do it. Like, you know, there's nothing to kind of hold us back from doing something that we like.
For at least trying. And I think there's one thing that you said that's extremely important. As long as we are passionate about it, and I think this is what drives the whole thing. As long as you're passionate about it, and I mean, I think everyone can see and hear, whoever is listening, that you're passionate about football and about sports. And moving forward, I don't think there's anything that should hold you or your brother back to become successful here in Qatar or in the Middle East.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's passion is the driving force. Like my highest highs have been because of sports, and my lowest lows have been because of sports.
But that's why we love it, don't we?
Exactly. You always end up coming back to it.
I think so too. And I think if we can connect football or sports in general, passion, and connect it with the business, then that's a very powerful connection to have that can hopefully last for very long.
Yeah, and I think it has to come from a genuine place as well. You know,
definitely.
It's what I want to do at the end of the day. I mean, when I first kind of started the company here, I was working at a marketing agency for about a year. I resigned in February, and the more I kind of worked there, the more excited I got about Doli Sports and the company that I started, because it just proved so much more to me how much more I liked it. Even though the salary was okay and that part was kind of cool, but like, who cares at the end of the day? Like, sports is kind of, you know, running through my blood, and it comes from such a genuine place that even if I make mistakes, I'm cool. Like, I'll learn from it and I add that to the experience.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And like you said, salary at the end of the day, it's important, definitely, but it's not a driving force if you feel like you're determined to do something else that you're really passionate about.
I'd much rather be happy.
Oh, that's such a great note to end on. We rather be happy and passionate about what we do. Thank you, Hamad, today for being on. That was good fun. That was a pleasure to have you.
Man, thank you. Thank you for having me. The pleasure was all mine, really. I've watched a couple of your episodes, like I said from before, and this is exciting stuff. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for being here again. Hey guys, I hope you liked that video. Oh, thank you. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, please give the video a like, subscribe to our channel for more interesting and inspiring content. Comment down below what you would like us to post. Don't miss out on any of our videos by turning on the notifications on our channel. Somewhere here, I guess. You can find all our social media links in the description below. Make sure to keep yourself updated with our content. See you in the next video.